Once upon a time, a kind shepherd named Jaafar lived with his wife Morbuha, who was known for being overweight and sharp-tongued. They lived together in a simple cottage in the middle of a beautiful village in a peaceful country. One day, while Jaafar was leading his herd to the pastures, he noticed smoke rising from between the thick trees in the forest. His curiosity and concern pushed him to leave the herd and run toward the source. When he got closer, he saw flames devouring the dry grass, forming a circle of fire in part of the forest. What caught his attention was a small snake trapped in the middle of the fire, crawling and twisting from the intense heat surrounding it. Jaafar felt pity for the snake and extended his long staff toward it. The snake clung to the staff and quickly climbed up until it reached Jaafar's arm, then leapt onto his neck and coiled around it. Jaafar trembled and said, "Is this how you repay me? Do you want to strangle me after I saved you from death?" Suddenly, to Jaafar's surprise, the snake spoke, saying in a calm voice, "Don't be afraid, kind shepherd. I won't harm you. I did this to reward you." Jaafar was astonished and asked, "Can you speak like humans? How is that possible?" The snake replied, "I am the son of the king of snakes. Our lineage has the ability to communicate with humans who save us. You've proven your kindness by rescuing me, so I will grant you a unique gift. You will now be able to understand the language of all animals. But I warn you, never tell anyone about this ability or how you got it, or your fate will be death." The snake then sank its fangs into Jaafar's neck, but pulled them out a moment later and quickly disappeared among the bushes. Jaafar returned to his herd feeling dizzy and unwell. He led the herd back home, where his wife Morbuha greeted him with concern after noticing his early return and poor condition. He told her that a snake had bitten him and that he felt heat spreading through his body. She took care of him, applying cold compresses until he fell into a deep sleep. The next morning, Jaafar woke up feeling healthy and unusually energetic. Even the snakebite on his neck had vanished. He went to work as usual. At noon, he lay under the shade of a tree to rest. As he reflected on what had happened the previous day, he laughed and said, "How foolish I was to think a snake could talk. To me, it must have been the feverish hallucinations." But suddenly, he heard voices coming from above the tree he was resting under. He looked up and saw two crows perched on a branch. To his astonishment, he could hear their conversation. One crow said, "Look at this foolish shepherd. He doesn't realize there's a hidden treasure right beneath him that people would fight over." The other crow replied, "What a fool indeed." Jaafar panicked and quickly stood up, saying, "Is this happening again? Am I dreaming? No, there's only one way to find out." He hurried to fetch a pickaxe and began digging where he had been lying. It wasn't long before his pickaxe struck a small wooden box. He pulled it out, opened it, and found it filled with gold coins, jewels, and precious stones. Overjoyed, he exclaimed, "I wasn't as foolish as you thought, you crows." He laughed, sarcastically, overwhelmed with happiness. The two crows were shocked to hear Jaafar speaking their language and flew away, cawing in disbelief. Jaafar returned home carrying the treasure chest. He told Morbuha that he had found it by chance while tending to the sheep, without mentioning anything about the crows or his extraordinary ability. Morbuha was thrilled and began dreaming of a luxurious life. Soon their situation improved, significantly. Jaafar bought a small farm and filled it with livestock, chickens, and horses. Morbuha indulged herself in fine clothes and jewelry. One day, as Jaafar was returning to his new house, he encountered a horse breeder struggling to calm a frantic racehorse. No one could figure out why the horse was so agitated. Jaafar approached, confidently, and said, "There's a thorn stuck in its front left hoof." The breeder mocked him, saying, "The hoof is fine and protected by an iron shoe. How could a thorn penetrate it? And who are you to make such baseless guesses?" Jaafar calmly replied, The thorn is under the shoe, and the horse got it before the shoe was attached." The breeder laughed and asked, "How do you know that?" Jaafar remained silent, unable to reveal his secret. He had learned the truth from the horse itself. Then he said to the breeder, "I figured it out from the way the horse was walking." The breeder became enraged and shouted, "Are you accusing me of negligence in my work?" Jaafar pleaded, "Please, kind sir, just do as I say and have mercy on this poor horse." The horse's owner, who was present, intervened and ordered the breeder to remove the shoe to verify the stranger's claim. Reluctantly, the breeder obeyed, and as soon as he removed the shoe, a thorn was revealed embedded in the horse's foot. Everyone was astonished, and the truth of Jaafar's words was confirmed. The horse's owner turned angrily to the breeder, saying, "We'll settle this later, you useless man," then turned to Jaafar with amazement and said, "As for you, sir, you've amazed us all. How did you pinpoint the source of the pain so accurately? Did the horse tell you?" He laughed as he said it. Jaafar was startled by the question because what the man said was absolutely correct, but he didn't dare reveal the truth, remembering the snake's warning that revealing the secret would mean his death. So he simply replied, "I'm just a man blessed by God with keen insight." On his way, Jaafar passed by his neighbor, Mr. Mansour, who was struggling to get his sheep into the barn. The sheep were making loud noises and running around in distress. Jaafar heard what the sheep were saying. They kept repeating, "Danger in the barn! Danger in the barn!" He offered to help Mansour, who accepted. Jaafar grabbed a pitchfork and entered the barn, flipping through piles of hay as Mansour watched in amazement. After a few moments, a snake hiding in the hay lunged at Jaafar, attempting to bite him. But Jaafar swiftly stabbed it, ending its life. Once the snake was dead, the sheep calmly entered the barn without resistance. Mansour laughed and said, "You must have incredible intuition, Jaafar. How did you know there was a snake there?" Jaafar smiled and replied, "As I said, Mansour, as I said." On another day, the prince, the king's son, went on a hunting trip with his entourage and passed through Jaafar's village. By evening, they set up their royal tents on the outskirts of the village, and the villagers gathered to watch the welcoming ceremony. Jaafar was among them, but what caught his attention wasn't the event itself. It was an owl perched high in a tree, emitting warning cries to alert the animals to leave the area because a great danger loomed ahead, one that could lead to the entire village burning down. Jaafar rushed toward the owl, calling out, "Wise owl, wait!" The owl perched on a branch and looked at him curiously. Jaafar asked, "What's going to happen? Why are you warning everyone?" The owl hesitated, then decided to test him. It asked, "What kind of fruit does the tree next to you bear?" Jaafar looked at the tree and said, "It's an oak tree." The owl realized he truly understood her language and said, "You seem like a good and honest person. I'll tell you what I've heard." After the owl shared the secret, Jaafar's face showed signs of shock and worry. He said, "Oh no! I must prevent this disaster before it's too late." Jaafar ran as fast as he could toward the royal tent, where the mayor was hosting a dinner for the prince. He tried to enter, but the guards stopped him. Shouting desperately, he cried, "Please, it's very urgent." No one paid attention. Just then, he spotted the mayor approaching the prince with a goblet of juice, saying, "My lord, this juice is the product of our village, and we hope it pleases you." Fearing the goblet would reach the prince before he could warn him, Jaafar acted immediately. He pulled a handful of gold coins from his pocket and threw them in front of the gathered crowd. Everyone scrambled to grab some, causing chaos. Seeing this, the guards rushed to disperse the crowd, allowing Jaafar to slip through unnoticed. He ran as fast as he could toward the prince, shouting at the top of his lungs, "No, don't drink it, your highness!" The guards chased after him, and one even shot an arrow that struck his thigh. But Jaafar didn't stop. He kept running despite his injury. At the last moment, the prince noticed Jaafar just as he was about to drink from the goblet. Surprised, By the commotion, the prince ordered Jaafar to be brought before him immediately. When Jaafar stood before him, exhausted and with blood-stains on his face, the prince asked, "Why did you risk your life to come here? What do you want?" Jaafar replied weakly, "The goblet in your hand contains deadly poison." The prince looked at him skeptically but decided to test it. He poured the juice onto a nearby plant, and within moments the plant withered and died. The prince turned sharply toward the mayor. At that moment, the head of the guards drew his sword and stepped forward to strike the mayor's head. But the mayor fell to his knees in terror, and Jaafar shouted with all his remaining strength, "No, your highness, stop! Him!" The prince signaled for the guard to halt, despite the latter's insistence. "Let me strike his neck, my lord! This traitor almost ended your life!" The prince firmly replied, "I said stop! Let's hear the whole truth first." Jaafar began speaking, with difficulty. "The mayor is innocent. Someone else poisoned the juice without his knowledge, trying to assassinate you to provoke the king's wrath and destroy the entire village." The prince angrily asked, "Who dares to do this? Who is it?" Jaafar raised his finger and pointed to the head of the guard, saying, "It's him! Your own chief guard did it." The guard laughed mockingly and said, "This foolish peasant is accusing me? Me, your loyal servant! Clearly he's conspiring with the mayor." The prince looked at his guard, then at Jaafar and asked, "If he were conspiring, would he have risked his life to save me?" Then he turned to Jaafar and asked, "Do you have proof of your claim?" Jaafar replied, "Yes, your highness. You'll find the vial of poison in his inner pocket." The guard grew flustered, sweat breaking out on his forehead. He pleaded, "My lord, please don't believe this nonsense." But the prince had already made up his mind. He ordered the guards to arrest him. They obeyed immediately. The prince reached into the guard's pocket and pulled out a small vial containing a toxic liquid. He looked at the guard bitterly and said, "So this is why you were eager to kill the innocent mayor, to cover your crime." He signaled to the guard, saying, "Take him away. He'll be tried when we return to the kingdom." Afterward, the prince summoned his personal physician, who treated Jaafar's wounds until he fully recovered. When the prince expressed satisfaction with discovering the secret that enabled Jaafar to uncover all those details, Jaafar quietly said, "I don't ask for a reward, my lord, but I beg you to excuse me from answering if you kindly permit." The prince laughed and said, "Your request is granted. But who knows? Maybe one day I'll return to this village as king, and you'll be my minister or advisor, and then you can tell me your secret." Before leaving, the prince appointed Jaafar as the new mayor of the village, replacing the previous mayor, who had resigned after the shocking incident. One day, Jaafar, now the mayor, was driving his fancy carriage through the village streets when he heard loud chirping from sparrows gathered on the balcony of one of the cottages. At that moment, a woman came out of the garden shouting in annoyance, "Go away, you annoying sparrows! My baby just fell asleep and you're chirping outside his window!" She picked up her shoe and threw it at the sparrows, which flew away. Suddenly, Jaafar shouted to his driver to stop. He jumped out of the carriage lightly and leaped over the fence into the garden. The woman in the garden called out, "Mr. Mayor, what are you doing? Have you lost your mind?" But Jaafar didn't answer. He rushed toward the cottage, repeatedly saying, "Your child is in danger." The woman screamed to her husband, who was busy in the backyard. "Hurry, my husband! The mayor wants to harm our son." The husband ran in panic toward the cottage. When he reached the baby's room, he found Jaafar standing near the crib, placing a finger to his lips as a sign for the father to stay silent. The husband froze in place, seeing a black scorpion slowly crawling on the sleeping baby's body. The father's heart trembled, and he wanted to intervene, but Jaafar calmly stopped him, saying, "Any reckless move from you could cost your child's life. Let me handle it." He carefully extended his staff toward the scorpion, which began feeling the staff with its legs. Tension reached its peak. At that moment, the mother arrived in a hurry, but the husband held her back and covered her mouth, asking her to remain quiet. After tense moments, the scorpion climbed onto the staff. Jaafar quickly lifted it, threw it to the ground, and stomped on it with his shoe. The parents breathed a sigh of relief, overwhelmed with joy at their child's rescue. They thanked Jaafar warmly and deeply apologized for misjudging him. Jaafar left the cottage, turned to the sparrows chirping peacefully on the balcony, and smiled contentedly before continuing on his way. Months and years passed. One day, Jaafar was taking a walk with his wife Morbuha on their farm, riding their horses. Jaafar's horse moved lightly and energetically, while Morbuha's horse seemed sluggish. Jaafar's horse joked, "What's wrong with you? Are you walking so slowly? Because of old age?" The other horse replied, "No, it's the load. What do you mean?" "I mean, you're carrying a deer on your back while I'm burdened with a fat cow." When Jaafar heard his wife's horse complaining, he burst out laughing so hard that he fell off his horse. Morbuha looked at him in astonishment and asked, "What's making you laugh like that? Tell me right now." Jaafar got up, wiping his tears, and said, "Nothing, honestly." But Morbuha wasn't convinced. She dismounted her horse and insisted, "Tell me right now." Jaafar apologized and said he couldn't reveal the truth, advising her to return home. But Morbuha started crying and screaming, swearing she wouldn't move until she knew the truth. She angrily said, "I want to know the secret that made you what you are today." "Don't tell me it's intelligence. What intelligence suddenly appeared? And where was it when we got married?" Jaafar explained that he couldn't reveal the truth to her or anyone else, as doing so would mean his immediate death. He swore to it and advised her to thank God and stop asking questions. But Morbuha wouldn't calm down. She stamped her feet on the ground repeatedly, exhausting him with her persistent questioning. Faced with her stubbornness, Jaafar finally gave in to her demand, but on one condition: she had to give him some time to dig his own grave. He picked up a pickaxe and began digging a grave in the middle of the farm while Morbuha watched with cold eyes, refusing to relent. When he finished, he lay down in the grave and said, "Now I'm ready to die after telling you the secret, as I can't keep it any longer." Morbuha scoffed, "Don't think this act will change my mind. I won't. Back down." At the moment Jaafar opened his mouth to reveal the secret, a rooster and a hen passed by. The rooster was busy pecking at grains on the ground, while the hen looked at Jaafar with pity. The hen turned to the rooster and said, "Aren't you ashamed? Our master Jaafar is about to die, and you're only thinking about food." The rooster replied without looking up, "That man lying there is just a coward. If he were a real man, he wouldn't let a woman push him into the grave, especially since he swore that revealing the secret would mean his certain death. If he can't trust her in a matter that might cause his death, when will he ever trust her?" When Jaafar heard these words, his eyes blazed with anger. He jumped out of the grave, glared at his wife, and grabbed his staff, ready to strike her. She fled in front of him, screaming, "Forgive me, forgive me. I won't do it again. I repent." From that day on, Morbuha never dared to ask about his secret or anything else that might provoke him. Jaafar spent the rest of his days as a beloved mayor, using his special ability to spread goodness and achieve justice among the people. And so ends our story. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you support me by subscribing to the channel and liking the video.